Hakadosh Boker Or, Masechet Sanhedrin Daf Amud Aleph 22a1. We were talking about right now about the concept of Ezra Sofer, that Ezra Sofer was such a great rabbi, such a great scholar, that the Torah was fitting to be given to him if it wasn't for Moshe Rabbeinu. So obviously Moshe Rabbeinu came first, so the Torah was given to Moshe Rabbeinu, but there were certain things that changed, and then we brought down different psukim showing the parallel between Moshe Rabbeinu and Ezra Sofer. And then we went and we said that even though the Torah was not given through him, but the Ktav was changed through him. Shene'emar, but it says in a pasuk, Uktav anishtavan. What does it mean, Ktav anishtavan? It says, Ktav shenishtane, Ktav Aramit, Targum, right? Aramit, Uchtiv, and it's written, Velach ha'alin ketava lemikre ufishre leodah lemalka. They didn't know how to read this type of a Ktav and to explain it to the king until Daniel came, and Daniel was the one that explained it to them. So therefore, that's the pshat. Ktav anishtavan. Nishtavan means the changes. That's what's written in Sefer Ezra. So therefore, that is Ktav Ashuri. What we do nowadays is Ktav Ashuri, not Ktav Ivri. This is because of Ezra Sofer. Uchtiv, and it's written, V'ketav et Mishneh Torah zot, right, that you're going to write this Mishneh Torah, Ketav ra'ui lishtanot. When it says Mishneh Torah, Mishneh is also not only just, right, the last part of the Mishnah, or the Mishnah could be a few things. Mishnah could be a chazarah, like shinun, but it could also be shinui. Shinui is something that changes, right? And mishneh is a chazarah. That's why devarim is the chazarah of the entire Torah. There's obviously many mitzvot which are added in as well, but it's something which is also going to be a shinui. Ktav ra'ui lishtanot. So the Gemara asks, Lama nikra ashurit? Why is it that the ktav that we have in the Sifrei Torah is called ktav ashurit? Why? He says, Sha'ala imahem me'ashur. It came up with Israel from the land of Ashur. Ashur is Assyria. Okay, so therefore that's why it's called. Usually, Ashur is translated as Assyria. Usually, that's what it's translated. So now it says like this. Now it says, right? Tanya, we learned in the Rabbi. Rabbi says, "But techila bichtav zeh." At the beginning, it was in Ktav Ashuri. And that's what we read until today. Nitna Torah l'Yisrael. Kevan shechat'u ne'epach lahen leroetz. It was broken up, and therefore they couldn't read it anymore. Kevan shechazru ba'en. Once they again did teshuvah, echziro lahem. It gave it back to them. Shneimar shuvu levitzaron asirei tikva gam hayom magid mishneh. What does that mean? Again, according to what we learned before, was we used to use only Ktav Ivri, right, which is basically Evirana, right? And what happened is afterwards, because of Ezra Sofer, we changed it to what? We changed it to Ktav Ashurit. According to this Braita, Rabbi comes and he says, no, we always had Ktav Ashurit, but we sinned. When we sinned, right, this is at the end of the Beit Rishon, and what happened was that all of a sudden we lost the Ashurit, right? And therefore, since we lost Ashurit, we weren't able to use it anymore. Comes Ezra Sofer, and Ezra Sofer is coming up right after Babel. Remember that in between the first and second Bet HaMikdash, when the first Bet HaMikdash was destroyed, right, they went to Babel. They were in Babylonia for the 70 years, and then they came back with Ezra Sofer. So when Ezra Sofer came back up, he brought back the Ktav Ashurit that they previously already had beforehand. So it wasn't Ktav Ivri and then they changed to Ashurit. They had Ktav Ashurit. They lost it because of their sins, and they didn't understand anymore. And then again, when Ezra Sofer came and they did teshuvah, he brought it back, and then they had the Ashurit. So according to this, Lama nikra shema Ashurit. So why is it called Ashurit then? She'meusheret bichtav, because it's actually the nicest of all the ktav. That's meushar, right? It's the best of all the ktavim, meshubach. Okay? Another Braita, B'Shimon ben Elazar omer mishum Rabbi Eliezer ben Parta. Says Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, name of Rabbi Eliezer ben Parta. She'amar mishum Rabbi Elazar Amodai, that he says the name of Rabbi Elazar Amodai. Ketav zeh lo nishtana mikol ikar. This ktav that we write in the Sefer Torah never changed. Shneimar, but it says in a pasuk, Vaveh ha'amudim. What does that mean exactly? The Yitudot were called the Vavim, right? Why? Because they look like a Vav. Meaning these are like the pegs which are used for the sockets. So they look like a Vav, right? And therefore, you see from here that during the days of Moshe Rabbeinu, they wrote the Gvav exactly like this Ktav, right? Just like they write in Ashurit, right? So therefore, and the same was going to be with all the other Ayotiyot. So therefore, why was the yeted a peg called a vav? Because it looks like a vav. What's a peg? It looks like a vav. It looks like something that you come in, it sticks out. You take it from a wall, you take it from different places. So therefore, it looks like a vav. So it's like a hook, right? What is the right? The amudim are the hooks. So he says over here, ma amudim, just like the amudim lo nishtana, vavim lo nishtana, just like the amudim didn't change, so too the surat of vav did not change as well, right? Vela yudim kichtavam yishchilshonam. What does it mean by this? Is by the Megillat Esther where it says, right? That again, this is the beginning of the Beit Sheni. It says that they wrote for all the Yudim kichtavam v'chilshonam. Ma leshonam nishtam, just like the Lashon HaKodesh never changed, so too ketavam lo nishtana, so too the Ktav never changed. So then, what am I going to be mekayim with the pasuk that says the Mishnah Torah zot? The shtet Torot. We're talking about two Torot. What does that mean? There are two Sifrei Torah that the king has to write. One that he's going to go out with and come back with him. One that he has in his safe. The one that is that is going in and out with him. It's going to be very small. And it's going to be in his arm. What does that mean? We said, right, that you're going to have a very small one. So this very small one is the one that you're going to come and mamash. It's like the king had for coming in and out. It's a very small Sifrei Torah. So this small Sifrei Torah, right, was going to be used when he's going in and out of war. But the regular other Sefer Torah, he's going to have it in his Aron HaKodesh. That's what he's always going to have. Okay? Fine. Ve'idach, right? And the other Tana, right, which is going to come and he's going to say that we're talking about, right? Again, he holds that it's already enough, only one Sefer Torah. So, Hai Shiviti Madarshbe. What does he do with the pasuk of Shiviti Hashem Tamid? Meaning like this, according to this, the Tana that we just learned now, the king has to write two Sifrei Torah. Where does he learn that from? Because it says, Et HaMishneh Torah Zot. So therefore, Mishneh is like Lecha Mishneh. It's always the second one, right? There's a second one afterwards, right? Or like I told you, of Chazarah, that is always Shinun. You're always going one after another. So now what happens though is, if you're going to tell me that it's already enough for a king also to have one Sefer Torah, so what does he do with the pasuk of Shiviti Hashem Tamid? Shiviti Hashem Tamid, I understand, he's always with him. So therefore, he's taking one Sefer Torah always with him, and the other Sefer Torah he's got in his closet, in Gnazav. But if you're going to tell me right now that Be'emet it's already enough, just one Sefer Torah, so what do you do with the pasuk Shiviti Hashem Tamid? So he comes and he says like this. He says, "Haumi Baile." He needs it like Rav Chana Bar Bizna. The Amar Rav Chana Bar Bizna ben Shimon Chasida. In the name of Shimon Chasida. Whenever you pray, you always have to have the Shekhinah right in front of you. That's why in the majority of the Batei Knasiyot and places like that, they always will have, even like the Lamatzeach, they always have the Shiviti. Why? Because they have the Shiviti and then Hashem in big, right? Like the Tamid, because that way they have the Shekhinah is always in front of Shekhinah. Shiviti Hashem and the Tamid. The Rabbi Shimon, and that's all we say, it's right before the Lamatzeach, obviously. Correct? Yeah? So we say right before Lamnatzach. Fine. The Rabbi Shimon the Amar, according to the Shimon that he says, Ketav zelo nishtana, according to Shitat Rabbi Shimon, that we never actually changed our Ktav. So therefore, what does it mean now? So why is it that Chachmei Melech did not know how to read it? He says what? Every Jew knew about it. What does that mean? So Amar Rav says, Begematariya ichtiv lehon. The Malach wrote it in Gematariyot. Here it says Otiyot Mutzfanot, which means, and therefore he went and he wrote like this: Yud Tet Tav, Yud Tet Tav, Aleph Daled Chav Sofit, Pei Vav Gimel Chet Mem Tet, which are basically Chilufe Otiyot for Menei Tekel Ufarsin. Meaning, when you do alphabet of Atbash, everybody knows what that is? Atbash? What do you mean by reverse? You might be right. I just don't know what do you mean by reverse. Exactly. When you switch, right? When you're going to switch the letters, meaning we say Elohenu ve'elo avotenu al ta'asimanu chala tochez yadecha mishvat bevot tochecha negdecha shemenu misrefecha ve'temach gishtecha lach hakol musar, right? Rachamecha yekadmu muzecha dalut ma'asim b'shurecha Karev tzedek me'elecha. That's Aleph, Taf, Bet, Shin, Gimel, right? That's the way that you're supposed to. That's called Atbash. Meaning, if you look in the Sidurim, many times it's been written Alphabet of Atbash. You know it was Anshe Muna is what? Aleph Bet. Anshe Muna, Tamaru Minaot is Tashrak, is down backwards. Right? Tafshin Resh Kuf, continue back. So the Elokeinu Eloten, which is the third one, is Atbash. So you have Aleph Bet Gimel Dalet is Anshe Muna Avadu. Tamaru Minaot is Tashrak, you're going backwards. And then Atbash is Elokeinu Eloten, that's Atbash. So when you come and you change the Atbash, right, which is basically you're going to change the Mem, and yet, so it comes out to, right, so the Yod is going to become a Mem, right? And the Tet is going to be a Nun, and the Tav is going to be an Aleph, and so that's how you do it. So it's Mene Mene Tekal Ufarsin. So therefore, that's why he says that the only one that knew how to do that was Daniel. It says over here, Midat Gematria, there's two ofanim. You're doing the otiyot according to the way that it is, Aleph and Bet, or Chiluf otiyot, right? Which is a Seder Mesuyam. That's what on Rashi's Masechet Sukkah Kafchet Amud Aleph, Tibun Mechig Gematariot. Kama ofanim yesh bechiluf otiyot. Here the kavanah is Aleph Bet b'shne turim makbilim. Okay, you're doing it in two different like rows. So you got the Aleph and then the Aleph until the end, and then you got the other way around. So he says, okay, if you're changing it. Okay, and then that's it. 11. Okay, very good. So that's what you have to change. You're changing the yod. When you change it, basically, right here, the malach came and he wrote to the king, Yud Tetaf, no. Now the king reads it. He even shows the chachmis, or to certain people, they have no idea. Meaning, even if they know Hebrew, doesn't make sense. What is Yud Tetat? That doesn't make sense. If you come and you realize that it's Atbash and you switch it, all of a sudden he comes and he tells them Mene Mene Tekalu Farsin, right? Which is basically going to be right. That's the rabbis, they instituted it. Yeah, for sure. Right? The rabbis instituted it. So he comes and he says like this. He says over here that they didn't know what it meant. So he says over here and it says Mene Mene Tekalu Farsin. Right? My parshile, what did he explain to him? Mene Mene Tekalu Farsin. Mene Mena Elaha Malchutach Ve'ashlama, which means the Akadosh Baruch Hu, he counted. Mena is to count. He counted, right, the number of your years of your reign, of your kingdom, right? And therefore you already finished them. Tekal, what does that mean? Tekalta b'moznaya ishtakachta chasir. Right? You're going to come and you're going to go in front of Hashem with the Moznaim, and it comes out that it's Chaser, which means the Kafab Moznaim that you came and you actually went against Hashem was actually lacking. Okay? You were lacking. Right? Because basically he was Mechalel et Hashem with Kodshe Hashem because you remember what happened. Belshazzar, right? He was, right, the king. Right? This is after already Nebuchadnezzar Melech Bavel, after Avil Meridach, right? Comes Belshazzar. Belshazzar, right, was the father-in-law of Achashverosh, the father of Vashti, right, the father-in-law of right Achashverosh, right. And what happened is that he took out the kelim of the Bet HaMikdash because according to his minyan, right, according to his number, it already finished the 70 years. So therefore, he said, "We're making a party." Why? It passed 70 years and nobody came and redeemed them. So for the fact that nobody came and redeemed them, so therefore, what does that show you? That shows you that what? That they're going to stay here forever. So therefore, they were very happy. He comes, he took out the things of the Bet HaMikdash, and that same night he was killed out. Right, there was a whole thing right that happened there. So it says over here, "Peras prisat malchutecha v'ivat lemadai ufaras." It's going to be broken your malchut, and it's going to be given to right madai ufaras. That's parsin is like paras. Okay, that's it. So mene tekal uparsin. So again, mene means that you're going to that Hashem came and he counted your kingdom. And what? And it was actually going to be this. That's it. You finished. Tekal means that you took in the Muslim, you took in the measure, and you were wrong in the way that you accounted for all the years. Parsin is that we're going to be pores, right? Like just like a prusa, you're breaking up, right? So you're going to be pores. Prisat malchutecha v'yavil madayu faras. Shmuel Amar, Shmuel comes and he says, right? There's another way how the malach came and he hit it on the wall. Because remember, this hoda'ah was written on the wall, and they didn't understand what was going on. Right? This thing that was written on the wall, they had no idea what was going on over here. Right? They were like lost. Okay, so it says over here. Okay, here it says this happened on the last day of the Malchut Bavel. right? He says here, Melech Masechet, he made a mishteh. He used all the kelim of the Bet HaMikdash. During the mishteh, Masechet comes and he sees a hand coming and writing on the wall. And he was all afraid because all of a sudden he sees a hand writing. He doesn't understand what's going on. So he called the Chachamim and he told them what's written over here. Nobody knew how to do it until Daniel came. And then he explained to them, right, what exactly did it mean. Shmuel comes and he says, it was written, this pasuk, Mamtus nenakfe alaran, which means that it was actually written the milim, mena mene mene, tekal uparsin, right? But it was a different order, right? Meaning that he had to like decipher it. You see, you have exactly meaning like this. It was written, if you read it like this, right? You have it in the footnote. If you read it like this, it was written Mamtus Nenakfe Alaran. Now you're reading it, doesn't make sense. But it wasn't being read like this. It was being read downwards. So therefore it said Mene, Mene, Tekal, Ufarsin. Right? So that's the way that it was. Rabbi Yochanan comes and he says, it was written Anam Anam Lakat Nisrfu, which means, right, that the Melech comes and he sees the words Mene, Mene, but it was backwards. Right? Read it backwards. Ufarsin, nisrefu is ufarsin. Tekal, mena, mena. Right? So therefore it was written backwards. So he says, Ravashi comes and he says, Nema, nema, katal, ufarsin. Which means the Malach came and he only switched the two first letters. Instead of saying mene, mene, he did nema, nema. But everything else, right? Like the two first letters of each word. Because also ketal was tekal. Right? And parsin, ufarsin was pursin. So just the two first letters of each one, he switched over. But other than that, everything else was actually fine. So obviously Daniel had to come and he had to decipher that which was written. But according to this, each one, right, was there. Okay, until here we're clear. Daniel. En rochvin al suso. Nobody's allowed to come and to ride on the sus of the king, the horse of the king. Right, he says, "Ven yoshvin al kiso." You're not allowed to come and to sit on his throne. Ve'en mishtamshim besharvito, and you're not allowed to come and to use his scepter. I think they say in English, yeah, which is basically again, this is the makel, the beautiful, the scepter that he's showing out. Ve'en ro'inoto keshu mistaper. Nobody's allowed to look at him when he's taking a haircut. Ve'lo keshu arom, or when he's without clothing. Ve'lo keshu b'medemechatz, or not when he's in the bathhouse. Shenemar, but it says in the pasuk, som tasim alecha melech shetehe emato alecha, that he should have ema of him, meaning that a person mamash has to fear the king. It's not just stam that he's your friend. He has to have a fear. Fine. Says the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yaakov Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Says Rabbi Yaakov in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Avishag muteret li Shlomo. Avishag Ashunamit was permitted to Shlomo. Vasura la Adoniah, but she was prohibited to Adoniah, his brother. Now the Gemara is going to explain what's going on. So the Gemara says, Muter li Shlomo, it's permitted to Shlomo Melech, the Melech Hayah, because he was a king. Umelech mishtamesh b'sharvito shel Melech, and a king could use the scepter of another king. Vasura la Adoniah, but she's going to be permitted to Adoniah the hediotu, because he was a hediot. Okay, now again, Adoniah was the son of David from Chagit, and he was much older than Shlomo Melech. So David Melech came and he told Bathsheba that it's going to be Shlomo that's going to become king. Afterwards, Adoniah came and he did the exact opposite. Okay, but he went and he took it for himself. And then basically what happened is that they went and they said, no, that it's going to be Shlomo. Adoniah was the brother of Shlomo, yes. Yeah. Okay, but he says, but Adoniah was a regular person, though. He wasn't a king. So therefore he comes and he says, right, he says over here, why are you asking Avishag Rashunamila Adoniah? He says that he took the kingdom. Okay, fine. And then he went and he said that he's going to have a psak din mavet. The Gemara here is going to explain what exactly did Adoniah want when they made it b'malchut. So he explains that since a hediot is not allowed to come and use the sharvut shel melech, so therefore, but another king could. So Adoniah wanted Avishag himself, right? So therefore, he wanted to show the kilu that he was the king, and therefore they went and they said, "Look what's happening, kilu that he's taking Avishag to show that he's the king." Okay. So now he says over here like this. So basically, if Shlomo Melech wanted, he was able to get married to Avishag. So the Gemara says from here, Avishag Mahi. What exactly is Avishag exactly? Right? Why? Because David never actually married Avishag, right? She was only Mesharetet to David, right? But really, Be'emet, there was nothing here. So he says over here, Dichti ve'amelech David zaken ba bayamim, right? Ve'amelech David zaken, right? Ba bayamim. right? You know when we read this. Aftara. He says, "V'amelech David zaken ba bayamim v'yomeru lo avadav v'yivakshu la'adoni hamelech nara betula." Take a nara betula, וכתיב ונצותה, ויבקשו נערה יפה, they took a nara יפה, כתיב והנערה יפה מאוד, ותהי למלך סוחרת ותשרתהו. So she went and she served him, right? But he never actually married her, right? No. He wasn't even a pilegish because he never actually. Remember, why is it that she warmed him up? If the clothing didn't warm him up, why is it that she warmed him up? But she was a betula, so she couldn't be a beula because it's saying that she's a beula, she cannot warm him up anymore. So therefore, it had to be that he never actually married her. So he says, Amra. So Avishag said to David, Ninasvan, right? Get married to me. Amarla, he said to her, Asirtli, right? You're prohibited. Why? Because he already had 18 wives. Amrale, so she told him, this is actually what we just learned, that he had already the 18 wives. So he couldn't take another wife. So he says, Chasrele ganava. He says what? If there's chaser to the ganav, right? That you can't find somebody to steal. Nafshel ishlama nakit. Right? He's like, which means that the tshuva that she was saying is that I'm a sur is only like an excuse. Right? Really, be'emet is because you cannot have relations. Right? Meaning, did you understand what just happened? She went and she said, you're just using an excuse. You know why you don't want to take me as a wife? Because you're too weak. You're too old. So you can't have relations. So what happened? When he heard the words of Avishag Shunamit, Amalu, he went and he told them, Kiruli Batsheva, call me Batsheva. וכתיב and it's written, ותבוא בת שבע למלך החדרה, she went to the room, ואמר רבי יהודה מרב, באותה שעה קינחה בת שבע ב13 מפות, right? She went and she cleaned herself 13 times, meaning David HaMelech had relations with her 13 times in a row, right? So he said, and therefore she cleaned herself after each one. So therefore, Keilu, he showed Avishag Shunamit, you think that I don't have any strength anymore? He said he just had 13 times, one after another. So it was nothing to do with the concept that he didn't have any strength anymore, right? But you see from here that he did have it. Yeah. So Amar Rav Shimon bar Abba says Rav Shimon bar Abba, Boure kama kashin girushin. Look how difficult is divorce. Why? Share David HaMelech itiru lo liyached velo itiru lo legaresh. Meaning, if you think about it, 1 second, why didn't he just divorce one of his wives and get married to Avishag? They permitted the yichud, but they didn't permit for him to divorce a wife because they just get divorced. Now you can't just take a divorce for no reason. So therefore, and just change one wife. No, he wasn't able to. Okay, why? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Elazar, says the Elazar. There's a Gemara in Gittin, Daf Tzadik Amud Aleph also. Anybody that's going to divorce a wife, Ishtori Shona, Filu Mizbeach when he loved them all. Even the Mizbeach is going to take down tears. Shneimar, but it says in a pasuk, וזאת שנית תעשו כסות דמעה את מזבח השם בכי ונקה מעין עוד פנות אל המנחה ולקח בצום ידכם כתיב אמרתם על מה על כי השם העיד בניחה ובעיני שנוריך שאתה בגדת בה, that you went and you בגדת, איך אומרים? No, not cheat, it's a better word, it's you must, I don't know, okay, you're right, Bigud is also cheat, but it's not cheating, it's mamash that you went against her. Yes, this is the first wife.
We have 17 other ones.
Very good. So now 1 second. So you're right that here it says, there's a whole question about, does that mean, right? What does that mean? Does that mean it's the first nisuin for both or even just for one of them? There's a whole question about that. According to a lot of Shitot, you're right. It's only the first one. But again, we're talking about the Esher Nurim just to show you how bad is Girushin. Meaning that you're right. Technically, even let's say if it wasn't the first Nisuin, right? Because for example, we know Abigail was previously married, right? And also, but all the other ones, but still, at the end of the day, it's not simple stam to come and to start, how do you call this? To start divorcing. So Amar Rabbi Yochanan says Rabbi Yochanan v'item Rabbi Elazar and something says Rabbi Elazar. Any shto shel adam met al imkem v'akshim mimenu mamon ve'en lo. Do you know something very interesting? The wife of a person will not die before the time unless they ask him for money that he stole from other people and he doesn't have what to pay back. Shneimar, im en lecha leshalem, lama yikach mishkavecha mitachtecha. If you don't have what to pay, why is Hashem going to cause that He's going to take that which you're lying down on from underneath you? Which means that your own actions are going to cause that his wife will die. Rabbi Yochanan says to Rabbi Yochanan, If a person's first wife died, it's כאילו the entire Bet HaMikdash was destroyed during his lifetime. שנאמר בספר הפסוק, ואדם הנני לוקח ממך את מחמד עיניך במגפה, ולא תצפו ולא תבכה ולא תבוא דמעתך, וכתיב ואדבר אליהם הבוקר, ותמות אשתי בערב, וכתיב הנני מחלל למקדשי בגאון עוזכם מחמד עיניכם. So therefore from here you're seeing that it's mamash, that means mitat ishto, the death of a person's wife, is mamash like a churban Bet HaMikdash. So it's a powerful, very, very powerful. Fine. Amar Rabbi Alexandri, says Rabbi Alexandri, Kol adam shemeta ishto b'yamav, olam chashach ba'ado. Anybody that the first wife is going, that the wife is going to die during his lifetime, it's a kilu that the entire world became dark. Shneimar or chashach be'olo. Right? V'nero alav yidach. Rabbi Yosef bar Chanina Amar b'siyutom yikatzrot. He starts like walking slowly. Right? That means he gets weaker. Shneimar yitzrot tzadi ono. Rabbi Avu Amar atzato nofelet. What does that mean? Atzato nofelet. Okay, the Gemara is going to say it's like a tzat ishto, because beforehand he was always taking the advice of his wife, and now he doesn't have the wife anymore. So therefore, it's v'teshlecheu atzato. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, kashe lezivagam kikriyat yamsuf. Do you know that it's so difficult to come and to put the two people together, the man and the wife, just like kriyat yamsuf? Shneimar, it says pasuk, Elohim moshiv yechidim baita, motzi asri bakosharot. Right, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to come and put the two people together in the house. Right, yechidim baita. There's two individuals into one house. Motzi asirim is taking them out of Israel, right, from their chains. Right, but kosharot, right, during the times that they were there, al tikri motzi asirim, but rather kimotzi asirim. It's like taking them out of jail. Al tikri bakosharot ela bechi v'shirot, with tears and everything. That was during the Kriyat Yamsuf. So from here we see that it's mamash kasher lezavagam kit Kriyat Yamsuf, meaning just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu did at Kriyat Yamsuf, and it was like, wow, look what he just did. When he puts two people together in the same house, mamash, it's like that. It's mamash kriyat yamsuf. People think that it's very simple, like putting two people together. It's not true. It's very, very, very difficult, right? Men and women are two worlds, right? Two worlds apart, right? A man will never understand a woman, right? And a woman won't understand a man. It's just impossible, right? But they have to learn as much as they can to understand be'emet, what is their job, what is their mission, how could they help out, right? Fine. Any, says the Gemara, he says, what are you talking about? Why do you think it's so difficult for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to come and to be mizavek zivugim? He says it's already written that 40 days before Yetzirat Havlad, which is actually the night of the mikveh, if you pay attention. It's going to be bat kol yosef ve'omer, bat ploni leploni, right? Which means the 40 days before Yetzirat Havlad is going to be bat ploni leploni. So says the Gemara, it's not a question. Ha bezivug rishon, ha bezivug shani. Bezivug rishon, that's when we're going to say that there's no koshi in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why? Because it's already mandated, it's already said, as if to say. But zivug sheni, there it's very, very difficult, and we see it actually. Zivug sheni is actually one of the most difficult things, right? Because it's very, very difficult. Because each one, they already had a marriage beforehand, and they already were accustomed to certain things, and they're expecting certain things, and then they don't realize that it's completely different, and it's a different world, right? And again, that's why it's much more difficult. Zivug sheni. By the way, you should know that's also happens by zivug rishon many times. I remember once heard from Rav Tauber. He came to Gibraltar many, many years ago, and I remember he was giving a shiur, and he was speaking about Shalom Bayit. And he went and he said that there was a couple that came and they were having a lot of problems. And all of a sudden he went and he said, you know what, one second. He went and he asked the girl, what did your father do like on this? So, okay, the father used to help out or not. And then he asked the boy, what? And because they came from two completely different families, it was like, for one of them it was expected that I saw my father always helping my mother. So why didn't you help me? And the other one for him, his father never, picked up I don't know what, you understand? He was a good, Moroccan, Syrian guy. He doesn't pick up a fork. The wife has to come and serve him, breakfast, lunch, and supper. So what happens? It becomes a problem, because then what happens is that she's expecting something, and for him, he doesn't even know where she's coming from. And each one is saying, this guy's not normal. The other one's, no, she's not normal. Why? Because each one saw something completely different. So again, all these things, the person always has to take into consideration. Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman, says Shmuel bar Nachman, L'kol yesh tmura, chutz me'eshet neurim. Do you know everything has a substitute, except for eshet neurim, your first wife? Shneimar b'zeh the pasuk ve'eshet neurim ki timaes. He says, what? Do you think that she's going to be nimas? And by the way, you should know, a lot of people, they think that. A lot of people, after a few years of marriage, they come and they say, you know what, they're already tired. So since they think that they're already tired, they come and say, you know what, let me switch already. And they don't realize that they had the biggest beracha. And they come and they regret it. And then they come back, and then and many times once it's done, because once they come and they're buket ba, she doesn't want anymore. Matnila Rav Yehuda Rav Yitzchak Bere. So if Yehuda came and he taught Rav Yitzchak his son, En adam motze korat ruach ela mishto rishona. Do you know the person will only like, he'll find korat ruach from his first wife. Shneimar says, "Yeh mekorecha baruch." Right? Usmach ve'eshet nurecha. Kavet umvet 22b. So you're going to be happy with eshet nurecha. Malok goman for like who? Amalok goni micha for like your mother. So he says, 1 second. Are you going to tell me that his mother was such a tzaddiket? Any. He went in there. I found that the woman was even bitter than death. So he says that she's always like trying to trap you. And he said, Kigon man, like who? He says, Kigoni mecha, your mother. So I don't understand. The mother was a tzaddiket, or she was like a marmi mavet taisha, bitter than death. What's going on? So answers the Gemara, mitkaf tekifa, right? Ibure me'abre bemila, right? She was very, very strong woman. She was a strong woman, but she was ma'aviral midoteha, right? Very easily. Meaning, usually women are very difficult to appease, right? And that's already based upon the Midrash Rabbah and Parashat Bereshit, that it all depends where they came from. Women came from the earth, men came from the earth. Women come from the flesh. So for the earth, you could come, stample upon it, and then 2 seconds, a man comes, he's already kilu lo kara klum, tamshich b'chaim. A woman, the second you're pogeaba, Hashem yishmor, right? She'll remind it to you until the day that you die. Why? For another 120 years, you forgot this, and you did this to me, and you did that. And the husband doesn't even forget, doesn't remember half the things, right? He doesn't, but that's just because of where they came from. So he says, well, yeah, here she was exceptionally, even though she was a difficult woman, she was appeased very easily. Amar B'Shmuel Baruni Mishmei Derav says B'Shmuel Baruni Rav Isha Golemi. You know that a woman, she's a golem. What does that mean? She's a golem. She's like a mold, but she's only koretet brit to the one that made her into a keli, the one that made her into a utensil. Right. This is also the haftarah, right, to do with the chatan, which means that the one that has relations with you, that's what's making you, and that's why I told you, right, that the goyim come from here and they say he was my first. This concept, he was my first, is based upon this Gemara. That a woman is koretet brit el almisha kli. The one that made her into a utensil, the one that made her into a woman, she's koretet brit to him. Why? Because this is the one that's koretet brit. Tana, we came and we learned in a braita, en ishmet el alishto, meaning a woman is the one that she's feeling when the husband dies. Ven ishamet el bala, and the man is the one that feels when the wife dies. En ishmet el alishto shlemar v'yomot el Naomi. Right? So therefore, since it says over there that it was Ki'ilu Ish Naomi, so therefore that's what it's saying, that it was mamash from all the family members, the wife is the one that feels most when the husband dies, and the woman is the one that feels most when the husband dies. Meaning that when the wife dies, he feels the most. When it says Alai, Yaakov was chash kilu more than anybody else. Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he says in this week's parasha, right, when he's telling Yosef Tzaddik, why did he have to bury her outside of the Marat Machpelah? Okay, fine. Next, and Roinoto. Yeah, so we finished with all the gata to do with the wives story. You guys had a little bit of a break, right, and a little bit of Shalom Bayit classes for a few days, right, and now we continue. And Roinoto. So it says over here like this: you're not allowed to look at the king when he's taking a haircut. The king used to take a haircut every single day. Kohen Gadol was there Erev Shabbat, every single Friday, Erev Shabbat. Kohen Ediot was once a month. Because the king always has to look very, very handsome, very beautiful. So therefore, every single day he had to have a haircut. Kohen Gadol was Erev Shabbat, Shabbat. Since they had a new mishmar, so you always had to look tip-top. So therefore, it was once a week. Kohen Ediot was Hechal ל-30 יום. דכתיב ראשם לא יגלח ופרע לא ישלחו. Right, what does that mean? Kasom yichsemu et rashem v'yalif pera mi pera. Right, they're learning Zera Shava pera pera mi nazir from nazir. Tiva chapera l'ishalechu tiva tom gadol pera ser rosho. Male halin shoshim yom af shoshim yom, which means we know when a person comes and he takes upon himself nazirut stam, how much is that? Minimum 30 days. So therefore, when a person has to, they learn Zera Shava from the nazir that every 30 days they have to have a haircut because they have to be tip top, right? They have to look very, very good. They cannot. That's a pera pera. Okay, we also learned in the Mishnah, Stam Nezirut Shoshim Yom. So says the Gemara, how do we know that Stam Neder of Nezirut Shoshim Yom? Amar Matra Damakab says, Kadosh Yagadel Pera Ser Rosho. Yeh is a gematria of 30. because you have 2 yods, that's 20, and 2 hays, that's 10. So if it's 30, so kadosh yiyeh gadel pera sarosho. He's going to be kadosh in the fact that he's going to have gadel pera. That is going to be yiyeh is 30. So therefore, that's the gematria. Amaleh of Papa Abaye says Papa to Abaye ema lo lidabu klal. He says 1 second. Why don't I say that they're not allowed to grow it even at all? Right? Not even 30 days. They should be b'chayavim to come and do it even on the 29th day, not the 30th day. Elmaleh says, if it's written lo yishalechu pera, it's like what you said. But since it says ufera lo yishalechu, and then again it's pera leve shalucha lo shalechu, meaning they're allowed to have the pera, but they're not allowed to have more. Meaning they could do until the 30th, but they cannot. But they cannot do. בדיוק, אבל לא אחריה, אבל לא חייב להיות precipitation. That's the kavanah. So says the Gemara, so too now, meaning why is it that nowadays, right? You could look at Kohanim, they don't take care of us every 30 days. You should go to Kohen, tell them every 30 days. So says the Gemara, Dumya di yain, it's like yain. Ma yain bizman biya udasur, shelo bizman biya, right? Shari. Pererusho bizman biya is going to be a sur, shelo bizman biya, shari. All right, what does that mean? That it has to be just like the wine. Wine, they weren't allowed to come and drink wine when they go into the Bet HaMikdash, correct? So just like when nowadays a Kohen can drink wine whenever he wants, of course he can. Why? What's the difference? Well, there's no, right? So if he says, however, though, right? So the same thing, just like the wine is going to be permitted nowadays because there's no Bizman Biyah, so too, right, that he didn't come to the Bet HaMikdash, so too Trei Rosh is going to be the exact same thing. You're a Kohen, no? No, very good. So you have it here. Right? The yain shelo Bizman Biyah shari says what? Yain without the time of going into Bet HaMikdash is going to be permitted. But Tanya, we learned to the right. Rabbi says, Omer ani kohanim asulin l'shtot yain leolam. They're never allowed to drink wine. Right? Why? Maybe right now the Bet HaMikdash is going to be built, and they're going to, hey, you have to do the service. You're going to say, no, I'm sorry, I just drank wine. You're never allowed to come and drink the wine. But what am I going to do? He says that takana v'kohen bizman yain is the kalkala. Why? During the time of the Churban Bet HaMikdash. So he says, why exactly? He says, because since they're not serving in the Bet HaMikdash, so therefore they forget the mishmarot and batei avot to him, and therefore that's a takana that they're allowed to drink wine. But why? Because maybe it's not his shift, and we don't know. So says Abaye, who do we go like that the kohanim mizman are allowed to come and drink wine? Kerebi like Rabbi, miklal Rabbanan aseri. So it's mashma that according to Rabbanan, they're not allowed to drink wine. So answers the Gemara, Hatam over there, and the reasoning is Meira Yibane Bet HaMikdash, it's going to be built to Bet HaMikdash, Ubeinan Kohen Aroi Lavodah, Velekan. You need a Kohen which is going to be fitting for the Avodah, and you don't have that. Hachanami, so to hear Baina Kohen Aroi Lavodah, a Kohen that's going to be fitting for the Avodah, Velekan, you don't have that. Hacha. So he says over here, if Shad de Misaper Vayil, he says any Kohen that he could take a haircut in 3 seconds, that's it. Right? And therefore there's no problem. Meaning like this, you're going to tell me, a Kohen should, it's a 2 seconds job. You go to the barber, 2 seconds, zoom. Come on, what else do you need? So says the Gemara, fine, but by wine, the same thing. Hatamnami, if Shadinayim Purtavai, go to sleep a little bit. Come on, and you took off the wine. Derech mil v'shena kol shehu mefigin et hayayin. If you come and you're going to walk a meal, right? A meal is 18 minutes, right? That's in time. But a meal is just under a kilometer, according to Grachnai. So if you're going to walk a kilometer and you're going to sleep a little bit, that's it. It takes off the wine. So answers the Gemara, V'lavit manala wasn't stated. Amar Rav Nachman Amar Rav Avua, Loshanu ela sheshatak de revi'it. That's only if you drank a revi'it. Aval yoter mikdei de revi'it. But if you drink more than a revi'it, kol sheken shederet tov v'shem shekato, the opposite. Meaning, if you just drink a revi'it and you go to sleep, and you walk and then you go to sleep, they'll take it off. But if you drink more than a revi'it, it's the exact opposite. Zeh oseh afuch. When you sleep, it makes it worse. Or when you walk too much, it makes it worse. Okay? Fine. Next, Ravashi comes and he says, Shetuye yain the machle, right, avodah. He says, the Shetuye yain, they're going to be mechalel avodah, which means if they do the avodah after having wine, it's going to be a problem. So Gazur Rabbanan, right, so therefore the Rabbanan come and they're going to make a gzera. The Purei Rosh, even though they did an avirah, but they didn't destroy the avodah, meaning like this. When a person is drunk and he goes to the Bet HaMikdash and he does the service, it disqualifies the service. So therefore, there the rabbis made a gezerah that even nowadays or whatever it is, they shouldn't come and they shouldn't start drinking wine. Why? Because maybe Bemet, the Bet HaMikdash is going to come Bezrat Hashem in 2 seconds, and then boom. And then what are you going to do? But he says the haircut, even if they would do it with long hair, it's not going to come and not going to change anything. Meaning, okay, they did an avirah, but it's not because of that they're going to, meaning it's not going to be mechalel any service in the Bet HaMikdash, so therefore they didn't make a gezerah. Okay? Fine. So we're going to ask the following question. Ve'elu, right, shebemita, and these are the ones in mita, which are going to be chayav mita b'dei shamayim, purei rosh u'shtei yain. Meaning, if you have a kohen that he has long hair and he went, it's chayav mita b'dei shamayim. So bishma shtuyein dichtiv yaim v'shechal teshtat ovanechem lo tamutu. Rosh minala. How do you know? So he says the itkash. It's a hekesh. Right, makish. Shtuyein lefrei rosh. Ktiv v'rosham lo yigalech v'lo lo yishalechu. Uktiv in it's written v'yayin lo yishtu. Mashtu yaim mita frei rosh v'mita. Umina mashtu yaim. Just so 1 second. If you learn selam and shos, so b'diuk oto davar, that what? Shtuye yain u'prei rosh. Which means that you're learning that it's both mita b'dei shamayim when they go into the Bet Midrash with long hair or with the wine. So why don't we learn the same thing, that it's going to be mechalel d'avodah? That means just like we know that if a person drank wine, it's going to be mechalel d'avodah. So too, if they're going with long hair, it should be mechalel d'avodah. Prei rosh mechalel d'avodah. Kasha, you're right. It's a good question. Yeah, we don't have an answer. It's a good question. Fine. Next, Elmaleh Ravina Ravashi says Ravina Ravashi. Hi ad lo ate Yecheskel man amra. He says 1 second before Yecheskel came and he made this hekesh of prei rosh for shtuye yain. Who's the one that said it? How do we know it from the Torah? So says the Gemara, according to your reasoning, Hadam Rav Chasta, that which Rav Chasta says, Davar Zeh, from Torah Moshe Rabbeinu, right? He says, Lo lamanu el shebei Yecheskel v'ilmananu. He says, Kol ben nechar adel lev, ve'arel besar. Anybody that's going to be, right, which is going to be an edel lev, which means that he's going to be like a Kohen Rasha, right? He says, Ve'arel basar, a Kohen that didn't have a Brit Milah, Lo yavol mikdash, he shouldn't come into the Bet HaMikdash. Adeloba Yecheskel, who's the one that said it? If it came from Moshe Rabbeinu, but only Yecheskel brought it down, so what's going on? So he says, Gemara Gminele, Salachal Moshe Misinai, meaning we have a tradition. Now Yecheskel came and he based it upon a pasuk. Meaning, you're right, we had it already, Salachal Moshe Misinai, meaning we had a tradition going up to Moshe Rabbeinu. But Yecheskel came and he based it upon a pasuk. Hachanam Yisut to hear the exact same thing. Gemara Gminele, we had Salachal Moshe Misinai, right? That basically they're going to be chayav mita b'dei shamayim if a Kohen has long hair and he goes to the Bet HaMikdash. But Yecheskel came and he based it upon a pasuk. Okay? Okay, then afterwards you have the brackets that we don't read the brackets. Fine. My kasom yichsemut rashem. What does it mean now? Kasom yichsemut rashem. Tana, we learned kemin tisporet lulyanit. That's like a tisporet lulyanit. What is a tisporet lulyanit? My tisporet. I'm Rabbi Shmuel. Tispurta yechida. A tisporet which is very, very beautiful. How was it? Ravashi says rosho shel zeh, the long part of one hair, betzadi koro shel zeh, is in front of it. Meaning it's something incredible. That means the end of one hair goes to the shortish of the other hair, but in between there's nothing. Meaning it's like this hair is here. The top part is going to the shortish of this one that's here. And therefore in between there's nothing. So yes.
Yeah, doing lines.
Yeah. It's like a line and it folds over to cover that you don't see it. Okay?
It's like that.
Okay, whichever way. So Shalu at Rabbi, they asked Rabbi, what is the tispora of Kohen Gadol? Elmaleh and Tzuru tispora shel Ben Elasha. Right? Go look at the tispora of Ben Elasha. Tanya Rabbi Yomi lo chiyab b'zeh Ben Elasha d'maotav, right? Ela kedei la'arok bo tispora shel Kohen Gadol, which means that he spent a lot of money just to show what is the tispora of the Kohen Gadol. Hadran alach Kohen Gadol.